Tonight we are going somewhere very quiet. We are going to Mars, a cold, rusty desert of a world smaller than our own, where the wind blows almost without weight, and nothing has hurried in a very long time. The sky there is not blue in the daytime. It is a soft, dusty pink, the color of pale butterscotch, hanging still from one horizon to the other. And then, when the sun goes down, the colors quietly turn themselves around, and the sky closes the day in a cool and gentle blue. That is where we are going tonight. Nothing there is waiting for you. Nothing there needs anything from you. There is only pink light and slow dust, and a few small machines rolling gently across the stones. Let your breathing settle. Let the facts drift past. You are welcome to fall asleep at any point along the way. Fact 1. Mars is the fourth planet out from the Sun, orbiting about 1.5 times farther from it than we do. It is the next world beyond our own, a quiet desert of rust and stone, and it has been circling out there in the cold for 4.5 billion years. Imagine that small orange point of light drifting patiently along its wide, slow path, further out than Earth, taking its own unhurried time. Picture the space between us and it, empty and dark and calm, with nothing in it at all to disturb the crossing. As you rest, there is no need to travel any of that distance yourself. Simply let the thought of it settle over you, a neighboring world turning gently in the dark. There is comfort in a place so near to us and so completely undisturbed. And so Mars turns on, patient and far away, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 2. The daytime sky on Mars is not blue at all. It is a soft, warm butterscotch, a pinkish tan, the color of weak tea with milk or of fine sand held up against the light. The reason is the dust that hangs in the air there, so light and so slow to fall that the whole sky is faintly tinted by it. Imagine standing on that dusty plain at noon and looking straight up into a ceiling the color of pale caramel, even and soft from one horizon to the other. Picture how gentle that light would be on your eyes, with no glare in it anywhere, nothing sharp, only a warm and hazy glow. As you rest, let that color fill the space behind your eyelids, soft and dim and kind. There is a quiet in a sky that never quite goes bright, and so the pink day settles over Mars, resting quietly in the dust. Fact 3. That color comes from iron. The dust of Mars is rich in iron that oxidized long ago, which simply means it slowly rusted, and rust is the reddish-orange that covers the entire planet. The same grains that tint the ground also float in the air and tint the sky above it. Imagine a whole world painted in a single soft shade, the ground and the sky quietly agreeing with each other. Everything pale orange and worn and gently faded. Picture how gently the tones blend at the horizon, ground into sky with almost no line between them, as though the whole place were one continuous drift of color. As you rest, let that one warm shade wrap around everything, uncomplicated, unchanging, easy to look at. There is peace in a world that has only one color to offer, and so the rust lies quietly over Mars, resting quietly in the cold. Fact 4. And then, at sunset, the colors turn themselves around. The sky that was pink all day cools near the sun into a soft and lovely blue, a patch of gentle twilight blue gathered around the sinking light. It happens because the fine dust lets blue light slip straight through it, while scattering the warmer colors away. So blue is the color that lingers where the sun goes down. Imagine watching that slow reversal from a low, still ridge, the warm sky above, and a cool blue glow spreading softly along the horizon. Picture the blue deepening by small degrees as the light fades, unhurried, taking its time. As you rest, let those colors change slowly in your mind, the way a room dims when someone turns a lamp down very gently. There is a quiet beauty in a sunset that ends in blue, and so the blue evening comes to Mars, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 5. The rovers have photographed these blue sunsets many times, so we are not imagining them. Small cameras on the ground have stopped their work at the end of the day, turned toward the horizon, and taken picture after picture of that cool blue glow settling over the plains. Imagine one of those little machines sitting perfectly still on the stones, watching the light go down, in no hurry to do anything else. Picture the images themselves, grainy and soft, showing a small white sun sinking slowly into a pool of pale blue, while everything else around it fades quietly to gray. As you rest, know that someone has already seen this for you and kept it and brought it home. There is something gentle in a photograph taken on another world, simply because the evening was beautiful. And so the pictures wait quietly in our archives, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 6. Twilight lingers on Mars longer than it does at home. High above the ground, fine dust drifts far up into the thin air, and it goes on catching sunlight long after the sun itself has slipped below the horizon. So the glow does not switch off. It lowers and takes its time about it. Imagine the sky after sunset holding a soft, luminous haze for an hour or two, refusing to go fully dark all at once. Picture the ground beneath it losing its shadows slowly, every stone softening, every edge blurring away into the same dim and even blue. As you rest, let that long fading be the pace of your own evening. No sudden change, only a gradual settling toward night. There is comfort in a darkness that arrives politely, a little at a time. And so the twilight lingers over Mars, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 7. The Sun, seen from Mars, is smaller than the one we know. From that greater distance, it shows only about 2/3 of the width it has in our sky. Still bright, still the brightest thing there by far, but noticeably smaller and softer. A little white coin rather than a great warm lamp. Imagine looking up at midday and finding the sun a touch too small, familiar and yet gently reduced, as though seen from further back in a very large room. Picture the shadows it casts on the dust, thin and pale and long, never quite as hard as the shadows of home. As you rest, let that smaller sun hang there quietly, giving what light it can and asking for nothing. There is a softness in light that arrives from far away, and so the little sun crosses the Martian sky, resting quietly in the cold. Fact 8. Because it sits so much further out, Mars receives less than half the sunlight that falls on Earth, only about 43 parts in 100. Noon there is not the bright, flooding noon we know. It is closer to the light of a mild, overcast afternoon at home, pale and even, the kind of light that makes you want to sit down. Imagine a whole day lit that way, from beginning to end, dim and gentle, never once becoming dazzling. Picture the plains under it, softly shadowed, the colors muted, nothing glaring back at you from any direction. As you rest, let that low, kind light be the light of the place you're drifting toward. Easy on the eyes and easy on the mind. There is calm in a day that never grows too bright to rest in. And so, the pale noon lies over Mars, resting quietly in the dust. Fact 9. Gravity on Mars is weak, a little more than a third of ours, about 38 parts in 100. A person standing there would weigh about what a child weighs at home, and a single ordinary step would carry them further than they meant to go. Imagine walking across that dust in long, slow, floating strides, each one hanging a moment longer than it should before setting you down again. Picture a handful of sand thrown gently upward, rising, spreading out in the thin air, and then drifting back down so slowly that you could follow each separate grain all the way to the ground. As you rest, let everything grow lighter in the same way. Your arms, your shoulders, the whole weight of the day easing off. There is a lovely slowness in a world that lets things fall gently. And so the dust drifts down unhurried on Mars, resting quietly in the cold. Fact 10. A day on Mars is very nearly the length of ours. It is called a sol, and it runs 24 hours and about 39 minutes. Barely 40 minutes longer than the day your body already knows. Of all the differences between that world and this one, this is the one that hardly matters. A gentle near match between two planets. Imagine falling asleep there and waking to a morning that arrives just a little late, the day stretched by a few forgiving minutes. Picture the small machines on the surface keeping to that rhythm, working through the soul and going quiet at nightfall, exactly as we do. As you rest, take those extra minutes for yourself. There is no need to hurry toward morning. There is comfort in a day so close to your own that you would hardly notice the change. And so the souls pass slowly on Mars, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 11. Mars leans over as it turns, tilted about 25 degrees from upright, almost exactly the tilt of Earth, which leans about 23.5. That small lean is what gives a planet its seasons, and Mars has real ones. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter, arriving in their proper order year after year. Imagine the northern half of that world turning gently toward the sun and slowly away again, the light shifting a little with every passing week. Picture the frost creeping outward from a pole through the long autumn, spreading a little further each week, then quietly withdrawing again when spring comes back around. As you rest, let that slow turning carry you along with it, a rhythm far older and far calmer than any calendar. There is reassurance in a world that keeps the same seasons we do, and so Mars leans into its long year, resting quietly in the cold. Fact 12. But a year on Mars is long. It takes about 687 Earth days to circle the Sun once, which is very nearly 2 of our years. And so every season out there lasts roughly twice as long as ours. A Martian winter stretches on for months and months. A Martian spring takes its time in the same way. Imagine an autumn that lasts half a year, the light lowering so gradually that you could never say which day the season changed. Picture the frost taking whole months to gather at the pole, and whole months more to lift away again in the spring. As you rest, let that slower calendar settle over you, a world where nothing is late and nothing needs finishing this week. There is deep peace in seasons that refuse to be rushed, and so the long year turns on Mars, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 13. The orbit of Mars is noticeably oval rather than round, so the planet is closer to the Sun at some points of its year and further at others. That gives it uneven seasons. Summer in the south is shorter and a little warmer. Summer in the north is longer and milder. And the whole cycle is gently lopsided. Imagine a year that leans slightly to one side, one half brisk and bright, the other half drawn out and soft. Picture the planet easing inward toward the warmth, and then coasting slowly back out into the cold again, over and over, patiently, for billions of years. As you rest, there is nothing here that needs to be even or fair, only a slow, tilted rhythm that has always worked. There is calm in an imperfect circle that keeps turning anyway. And so, Mars swings wide and comes back, resting quietly in the cold. Fact 14. It is a cold world. The average across the whole planet sits at around -60 degrees Celsius, and the range is wide, about -140 at the winter pole and a mild +20 on a summer afternoon at the equator. So there are moments and places on Mars where the ground itself grows as warm as a mild spring afternoon at home, even while the thin air just above it stays cold. And then the night comes. Imagine that brief afternoon warmth on the equator, gentle and quiet, lasting only a few hours before it slips away. Picture the cold settling in behind it, even and unhurried, spreading across the plains without a sound. As you rest, let that cold stay outside, distant and harmless, something you are only watching from a warm place. There is a stillness in things that have been cold for a very long time. And so the chill lies over Mars, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 15. The air on Mars is far too thin to hold on to heat. So whatever warmth the day manages to gather drains away within an hour of sunset. The ground gives up its warmth to the sky, and the sky has almost nothing in it to keep that warmth from leaving. Imagine standing on a sunlit stone in the afternoon and feeling the temperature slip away beneath your feet as the light goes, minute by minute, without any wind to explain it. Picture the whole plane cooling at once, evenly, quietly, the way a room cools when a fire has gone out. As you rest, let that be the shape of your own evening too, the day's heat leaving gently, no effort required to let it go. There is a natural ease in things that cool down when the light fades, and so the warmth drifts off Mars at nightfall, resting quietly in the cold. Fact 16. At night, the stars over Mars come out sharp and steady. The air there is so thin that it barely bends the light passing through it, and so the stars scarcely twinkle at all. They simply hold their places, small and fixed and calm. Imagine a sky full of unwavering points, each one perfectly still, none of them flickering the way they do above our own thick and restless air. Picture how patient that sky would look, a whole field of quiet lights that do not move and do not blink, hanging there hour after hour while the long night passes underneath them. As you rest, let your gaze soften across all those steady points, nothing pulling at your attention, nothing changing. There is deep calm in a sky that simply stays as it is. And so the still stars stand over Mars, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 17. From the surface of Mars, our own planet is an evening star. Earth appears there as a small blue-white point, keeping close company with the sun in the hours after sunset or before dawn. Brighter than any star in that sky, and still no more than a point. Imagine looking up from that dusty ground and finding home reduced to a single quiet spark. Everyone you have ever known gathered into that one small light. Picture it hanging just above the rim of the plane, steady and pale, following the sun down and setting soon after it, without any fuss at all. As you rest, there is nothing lonely in that view, only a gentle sense of how soft everything looks from far enough away. There is comfort in seeing home as a calm point of light. And so the blue star sets over Mars, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 18. In March of 2024, the rover Perseverance looked up and saw the sky faintly glowing green. It was an aurora, spread thinly across the whole sky rather than gathered into curtains. And it was the first aurora ever seen from the surface of a world other than our own. Imagine that dim green light settling over the plains for a little while, so soft that a person standing there might have taken a moment to be sure of it. Picture the small rover sitting there on the stones, its camera raised, patiently recording a glow that nobody had ever watched from the ground of another world before. As you rest, let that faint color drift across the dark behind your eyes, gentle and slow. There is quiet wonder in a light so soft it is almost mist. And so the green glow faded over Mars, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 19. There are clouds on Mars, though they are thin ones. High above the dust, water ice gathers into pale wisps that drift slowly across the sky, so faint that they hardly shadow the ground at all, and at dusk they sometimes take on a trace of color from the low sun. Imagine looking up and finding those white threads spread across a butterscotch sky, moving so slowly that you would have to watch a long while to be sure they moved at all. Picture them thinning and gathering and thinning again through the afternoon, unhurried, going nowhere in particular, dissolving and returning as the hours pass. As you rest, let those pale clouds drift across your mind at the same easy speed, weightless and unimportant. There is peace in weather that asks nothing of anyone. And so the thin clouds cross the Martian sky, resting quietly in the cold. Fact 20. Higher still, other clouds shimmer. The rover Curiosity has photographed iridescent clouds over Mars. Soft bands of pastel color laid across the twilight, pale green and pink and gold, the kind of shimmer we sometimes call mother of pearl. It happens when the ice crystals in a cloud are all much the same size, so the light passing through them separates into gentle stripes. Imagine those faint colors spread high above a still, empty plain at dusk, seen by nobody but a small machine on the ground. Picture them holding for a few quiet minutes, and then fading as the light goes, softly, without any fuss. As you rest, let those pastel bands drift and blur, the last colors of a day on a world where nothing hurries. There is a tenderness in beauty that occurs whether or not anyone is watching. And so the shimmer fades over Mars, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 21. Mars is a small world. It measures about 6,780 kilometers from side to side, a little over half the width of Earth. Imagine standing on one of its wide plains and noticing that the horizon sits a touch closer than it does at home, the ground easing away a little sooner in every direction than your eye expects. Picture the whole planet as a modest, rusty ball, small enough to hold in your mind all at once, turning slowly with nobody on it. As you rest, let that smallness feel companionable rather than cramped, a quiet world of gentle size that has never needed to be any larger. There is something soothing about a place you can picture whole, without straining, without leaving anything out. A planet that fits comfortably in a single, drowsy thought. And so, Mars turns, small and complete, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 22. And yet, because Mars has no oceans at all, its dry ground adds up to roughly the same area as every continent and island on Earth put together. All that land, and not a single sea to interrupt it. Imagine a world where the shoreline never arrives, where you could walk in any direction for as long as you liked, and only ever meet more stone and more dust. Picture the whole of our own dry land lifted away and laid out again on that smaller planet, spread from pole to pole with nothing wet in between. As you rest, let that thought open slowly. Room enough for every desert and mountain we know, and no one anywhere upon it. There is a soft spaciousness in ground that simply goes on, mile after mile, with nothing asking to be crossed. And so the dry plains stretch away, wide and empty, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 23. Rising out of those plains is Olympus Mons, the tallest volcano in the solar system, standing almost 22 kilometers above the average level of the planet, something like 2.5 times the height of Everest measured from the sea. Imagine approaching it across a flat and dusty plain, the slope so far off that at first there seems to be nothing there at all. Picture its summit lifted clear above most of the thin Martian air, pale and still, catching the early light before anything below it does. As you rest, let the mountain simply stand there, doing nothing, needing nothing, the way it has for ages beyond counting. There is a deep calm in something so large that has been so quiet for so long, holding its shape without effort. And so Olympus Mons stands, tall and untroubled, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 24. Olympus Mons is not only tall, it is enormously broad, spreading about 600 kilometers from edge to edge, wide enough to cover a fair-sized country. Its bulk is spread so far that from the ground you could never take it in. Imagine setting out to cross it on foot, walking for days across the same pale slope, and finding nothing ahead of you but more of the same. Picture how the whole thing would slip below the curve of that small world's horizon long before you found its far side. As you rest, let the shape of it soften in your mind. Not a sharp peak at all, but a vast low swell in the land, gentle and enormous and softly rounded. There is a quiet ease in size that spreads out rather than looming over anything. And so the great wide mountain lies across the plain, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 25. Because it is so broad, the slopes of Olympus Mons are extraordinarily gentle. In most places, the ground rises only a few degrees, no steeper than a shallow ramp. Walking up one, you might never quite realize you were climbing a mountain at all. Imagine the ground tilting so slightly beneath your boots that your legs would tell you nothing, hour after unhurried hour. Picture yourself simply strolling on, the dust turning under your steps, the summit somewhere far ahead and in no hurry to arrive. As you rest, let that easy grade carry you along in your mind, an ascent with no effort in it, no scramble, no edge to hold onto. There is comfort in a climb that asks nothing of you and lets you take as long as you like or stop wherever you please. And so the long, soft slope rises on, patient and mild, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 26. Olympus Mons is a shield volcano, and it was built the slow way, by thin, runny lava spilling out and spreading wide, layer upon layer, across hundreds of millions of years. It grew by pouring rather than by bursting. Imagine one of those old flows creeping outward across the plain, glowing dully, cooling as it went, adding a few meters of new rock before it stopped. Picture that happening again and again over spans of time so long that the mountain hardly seemed to change from one age to the next. As you rest, think of it as something assembled patiently, one quiet layer at a time, with no hurry and no drama anywhere in the making of it. There is a gentle satisfaction in things built that slowly, a mountain gathered the way dust gathers on a shelf. And so the layers lie stacked where they cooled, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 27. Olympus Mons sits at the edge of the Tharsis Bulge, a vast, raised swell of the crust that carries 3 more giant volcanoes in a neat diagonal row: Arsia Mons, Pavonis Mons, and Ascraeus Mons. Together they form the great high country of Mars. Imagine flying slowly over that region, watching 4 wide summits pass beneath you in turn, each one huge, each one long since gone still and cold. Picture the 3 in their tidy line, spaced almost evenly, as though the planet had laid them out with a steady hand. As you rest, let that landscape settle in your mind. High, pale, dusty ground with old mountains standing on it, and nothing moving anywhere at all. There is a quiet order in that arrangement, ancient and undisturbed, and in no need of tending. And so the 4 great volcanoes keep their places, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 28. Mars has no drifting plates the way Earth does. Its outer shell is one single unbroken piece. So when a hot plume rose beneath the surface, the ground above it never slid away. The volcano simply stayed put and kept growing on the same spot. Imagine the same small patch of crust being fed from below for age after age, never moving, never losing its source. Picture how, on Earth, that same plume would have left a chain of small islands instead, each one carried off in its turn. As you rest, let the difference feel restful rather than strange. A world where nothing shifts underfoot, where things stay exactly where they began. There is a deep steadiness in ground that has not traveled anywhere in billions of years and has no plans to start. And so the still crust holds its mountains in place, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 29. All of those great volcanoes have been quiet for an extremely long time. Even the youngest lava flows anyone has found on their flanks are millions of years old. And nothing has stirred there within any span we could call recent. Imagine the last flow easing out and cooling, the rock hardening, the dust beginning to settle over it, and then nothing at all, for longer than our whole species has existed. Picture that same surface today, unchanged, softened only by the slow drift of fine orange powder. As you rest, Let the sheer length of that stillness spread out around you. An age of nothing much happening at all, on a mountain that once poured out slow rivers of stone. There is peace in a fire that has been out for so long that even the ash has settled. And so the old volcanoes stay cold and settled, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 30. Cutting across the middle of the planet is Valles Marineris, a canyon system running about 4,000 kilometers from end to end, long enough to reach almost all the way across the United States. It is far longer and far wider than anything else on the planet. Imagine following it from above, hour after hour, watching one branching gorge open into another and another, without ever coming to the end. Picture the whole scar laid across a small world, so long that seen from orbit, it looks like a seam in the planet itself. As you rest, let that great length unroll slowly in your mind. No beginning to search for, no finish to reach. Only more quiet canyon ahead and more behind. There is calm in a thing far too long to hurry through, and nobody there to try. And so the valleys run on across the rust, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 31. In places, Valles Marineris drops about 7 kilometers deep and opens some 200 kilometers wide. So wide that standing on the canyon floor, you might not see either wall at all. The far side would simply be lost in the dusty haze. Imagine walking there and finding, in every direction, only level ground and pale pink air, with no hint that you were at the bottom of anything. Picture the walls waiting somewhere far off, patient and unseen, a whole day's travel beyond the horizon. As you rest, let that hidden vastness feel gentle rather than lonely. A room so large that it stops feeling like a room at all and becomes simply open country. There is a soft freedom in a place with no visible edges, nothing to press in from the sides. And so the wide floor lies open and level, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 32. Valles Marineris was probably not carved by a river. It most likely began as the crust stretched and cracked near the rising Tharsis bulge, splitting open along great faults, and then widened over ages as its walls crumbled slowly inward. Imagine the ground easing apart by fractions of a millimeter a year, a slow parting that no one would have noticed even standing right there. Picture the sides giving way in quiet landslides across millions of years, each one adding a little more width to the valley. As you rest, let the making of it feel unhurried, a canyon assembled not by force, but by patience, by rock settling gently downward whenever it happened to be ready. There is a soothing slowness in landscapes shaped that way, with no single moment when anything had to happen. And so the great valleys widen by inches across the ages, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 33. Down in the southern half of the planet lies Hellas Planitia, an old impact basin about 2,300 kilometers wide and some 7 kilometers deep. Because its floor sits so low, the thin Martian air gathers there more thickly than anywhere else on the planet. Imagine going down into that enormous shallow bowl, the ground sloping away for hundreds of kilometers, the air growing very slightly denser and heavier with every kilometer you go down. Picture the haze lying on its floor, a little softer, a little pinker than the air up on the plains. As you rest, think of it as the deepest, quiet hollow on Mars, a low, sheltered place where the dust settles and lingers longest. There is comfort in a wide old basin that simply holds whatever drifts down into it and lets it stay. And so Hellas lies wide and low, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 34. Mars is oddly divided into two halves. The northern third of the planet is smooth, low-lying plain, while the whole southern portion is ancient, heavily cratered highland, standing kilometers higher. Nobody is entirely sure why. Imagine crossing that boundary on foot, leaving the old pitted uplands behind and stepping down onto ground that is flatter and younger and strangely empty of scars. Picture the line running right around the planet, unmistakable from orbit, a quiet seam between two very different worlds sharing one small globe. As you rest, let the puzzle stay unsolved and untroubling. Perhaps an enormous early impact, perhaps something slow within the mantle. It is an old question that has waited a long while already, and nobody needs to answer it tonight. There is a gentle mystery in it, patient and unhurried, and nothing more than that. And so, the two halves lie side by side, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 35. Those southern highlands hold some of the oldest ground in the solar system. Their craters were made when the planets were young and stray rock was still falling everywhere, and almost nothing has happened to them since. No rain, no rivers, nothing at all to wash them away, only dust. Imagine a crater rim 4 billion years old, its shape still perfectly legible, its slopes softened only very slightly by the slow, endless drift of powder. Picture thousands of them overlapping across the uplands, every one a record of a single moment that nobody was there to see. As you rest, let that ancient surface hold still beneath you, unchanged since long before there was anything alive anywhere to change it. There is a deep calm in a landscape that keeps every mark it is given and loses none of them. And so the old craters lie where they fell, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 36. Almost everything on Mars is coated in fine dust. The grains are finer than talcum powder, and they settle over rock, rim and ridge alike, rounding every hard edge and muting every color down to the same pale rust. Imagine running a glove across a boulder there and lifting away a soft orange bloom that has been gathering there quite undisturbed for year upon quiet year. Picture the whole planet under that gentle covering, a world quietly upholstered, its sharpness worn away not by rain or frost, but by patient settling. As you rest, let the softness of it spread through the landscape in your mind, every outline blurred a little, everything drifting toward the same warm, faded shade. There is comfort in a world where even the bare stones are wrapped in something as fine as this. And so, the dust lies over everything, even and unhurried, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 37. Great fields of dark dunes ripple across Mars, gathered in the floors of craters and in wide basins near the poles. They are slowly moving, but only just. The busiest dune fields creep forward by only a meter or two in a whole Martian year, and most move far less. Imagine watching a dune crest for a full afternoon, from the cool of morning to the pink of evening, and seeing nothing shift at all, not one visible grain. Picture returning 100 years later to find the whole ridge advanced by the length of a swimming pool, its shape almost exactly as you left it. As you rest, let that be the pace of the place, motion so slow that stillness and movement quietly stop being different things at all. There is a soothing patience in sand that takes 100 years to cross a courtyard and never once hurries. And so the dark dunes inch onward, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 38. Dust devils wander the Martian plains, thin spinning columns of lifted dust that drift along in the afternoon warmth. Some are only a few meters wide, and some rise kilometers into the thin air, tall and slender and almost transparent. Imagine one passing a few hundred meters away, a faint pale twist against the butterscotch sky, moving without a sound. Picture the dark track it leaves behind, where the loose, bright dust has been lifted off to reveal the darker ground beneath, a signature the wind will slowly cover again. As you rest, let them drift past in your mind, thin and unhurried and quite soundless, sweeping the plains clean for no particular reason. There is something gentle in a whirlwind so slight that you could stand beside it and barely feel it pass. And so the dust devils wander on, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 39. Every few Martian years, the dust rises everywhere at once, and a great storm wraps the whole planet for weeks on end. The surface disappears from view, and the light goes dim and orange, as though the whole world had been tucked away inside a soft haze. And still, the storm never really pushes at anything. It only draws a veil. Imagine standing inside it, while the entire planet quietly loses its horizon. The ground fading out a short way off in every direction. The light gone thick and heavy. Picture the sunlight thinning out to a dull amber glow that lasts for days. As you rest, let the storm be nothing to brace against. Just a slow mist, softly lit, drifting past for as long as it likes. There is a strange gentleness in weather that can hide a whole world away without ever pushing at it. And so, the dust hangs everywhere, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 40. For 4 years, a small lander called Insight sat still on a flat plain and simply listened to the ground. In that time, it recorded more than 1,300 Marsquakes, and nearly all of them were far too faint for anyone standing there to feel. Imagine a seismometer under a small dome, so sensitive that it could hear the whole planet quietly settling, hour after hour, right through the long, cold nights. Picture the faintest tremor passing through the crust, unfelt and unheard, and one patient instrument writing it gently down. As you rest, let those tiny quakes move through the rock beneath you, slight and regular and utterly unhurried, like the slow breathing of something long asleep. There is comfort in knowing the ground stirs so softly and asks nothing of anyone while it does. And so, Mars trembles very faintly under the dust, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 41. The air on Mars is thin, far beyond anything we know on Earth. Less than 1 part in 100 of the pressure you are resting under tonight. Imagine standing on those pale orange plains and lifting a hand, feeling almost nothing move against your skin. Picture an atmosphere so slight that it barely leans on the ground at all, thinner than the air above our highest mountains, thinner than anything a body has ever breathed. As you rest, let that thinness feel gentle rather than empty, a world wrapped in the faintest of blankets, holding almost nothing in place. There is a softness to it, a sky that has quietly forgotten how to push. Everything that happens on Mars happens lightly and slowly, without weight and without force, as though the whole planet were moving on tiptoe. And so, The thin air lies over the desert, weightless and still, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 42. That thin air is almost entirely carbon dioxide, about 95 parts in every 100, with only traces of nitrogen, argon, and a little oxygen mixed through it. Imagine one single kind of air spread evenly around a whole world, the same everywhere, from the deepest basin to the highest summit. Picture it hanging there patiently, unchanged for ages, stirred only by dust and the long turning of the seasons. As you rest, there is nothing complicated in this sky, nothing layered or busy, just one quiet gas, cold and slow, filling the space above the stones. There is a simplicity to it that feels almost restful. A planet that has settled on a single answer and kept it for a very long time. And this gas, as it happens, is the reason sound behaves so gently and so strangely there. And so the carbon dioxide drifts on, unhurried and thin, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 43. Sound does travel on Mars. It is faint, and it does not go far, but it is real. And the microphones aboard Perseverance recorded it, the first sounds ever heard on the surface of Mars. Imagine the moment the recording began. A small machine in an empty crater listening. Picture what came back. The low breath of wind across the sand, the soft tick of the rover's own workings, the tiny snap of laser sparks on rock. As you rest, know that after all those years of looking at Mars and never once hearing it, a machine finally listened, and there was something there to hear. There is a quiet tenderness in that. Not a grand noise, not a discovery that shouts, only a thin and gentle sound arriving from very far away, carried home across the long, slow distance by radio. And so, Mars murmurs faintly to its listening machine, soft and low, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 44. What those microphones found was stranger and lovelier than anyone expected. Mars has two speeds of sound. Low notes cross the air at about 240 meters a second, while higher notes travel a little faster at around 250. Imagine a world where the deep sounds and the bright ones do not keep pace with one another, where each pitch takes its own quiet route through the cold. Picture the carbon dioxide itself doing this, the way it vibrates, absorbing and releasing the low tones slightly more slowly than the high. As you rest, let the thought stay soft. Two speeds, two gentle currents, running side by side through the same still air. There is no other place we know of that does this, and nobody had ever heard it before. And so, sound moves at two separate paces across the Martian plains, unhurried and apart, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 45. Because of those two speeds, a sound on Mars arrives out of order. The high part of it reaches you first, and the low part follows a moment behind, always a little late. Imagine a single note played out on that cold plain, and then imagine it coming apart on the way to you, splitting softly into early and late halves. Picture a piece of music crossing 100 meters of thin air and arriving loosened at the seams, its bright edges landing ahead of its deep ones. As you rest, let that gentle disorder settle over you. Nothing broken, nothing wrong, simply a world where sound comes undone as it travels. There is something dreamlike in it, the way a memory arrives in pieces and out of sequence, the bright part first and the deep part trailing gently behind. And so the notes drift in unevenly, early and late together, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 46. And the high notes do not last. In that thin carbon dioxide, the bright, quick sounds are soaked up almost at once, fading over only a handful of meters. A conversation held 2 meters apart on Mars would sound about as faint and distant as one held 60 meters apart at home. Imagine 2 people standing quite near each other on the sand and still needing to lean in. Picture a voice 10 meters off, arriving as nothing but a soft, blurred murmur, its edges worn away, its words gone. As you rest, there is nothing lonely in this, only a world that keeps every sound close to where it was made. There is a hush built into the air itself, patient and complete, and it takes in every bright sound before it has traveled more than a step or two. And so voices soften and thin within a few slow steps, gentle and muffled, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 47. There is one sound on Mars that does carry a little further than the rest, the wind. The long, low note of it moving over the dunes is made of exactly the tones that thin air is most willing to pass along. So on most days, wind is very nearly the only thing a person standing there would hear at all. Imagine every other noise on Mars staying near its own small patch of ground, never spreading, never traveling out to fill the plain. Picture the whole planet as a place where each sound lives for a few meters and then lets go. As you rest, let that be the shape of the stillness. Not emptiness, but a world where nothing ever reaches far enough to disturb anything else. There is a deep and simple peace in that arrangement, a quietness that comes not from absence but from distance. And so Mars keeps every sound close to itself, faint and near, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 48. Even the loudest things that happen there go almost unheard. A landing, a rockfall, a storm sweeping across a crater. Stand a few hundred meters away and you would catch only the barest low rumble, if anything at all. Imagine a spacecraft coming down on a distant slope and the plane beside it barely registering the arrival. Picture a whole dust storm passing at a distance and the sound of it thinning to nothing long before it reaches you. As you rest, let that ease into you, a world in which even the big events stay local, absorbed by the thin air within a short walk. There is nothing there that can carry far enough to startle anyone, and nobody there to be startled. And so the loudest moments on Mars fade away within a few hundred slow steps, softened and swallowed, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 49. The winds on Mars can move quickly, 100 kilometers an hour and sometimes more. And yet the air is so thin that they would press against you no harder than a gentle breeze at home. Imagine a wind that fast, arriving and barely stirring your sleeve. Picture the strange gap between the number and the feeling. A gale by measurement, a soft draft by touch. As you rest, let the whole idea soften. The fastest weather on Mars is still a light hand on the shoulder, nothing more. There is simply not enough air there to lean on anything with any force at all. Everything the wind does on that planet, it does patiently, over years and centuries, by nudging one grain of sand at a time. And so the swift, thin winds pass over the desert, weightless and mild, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 50. A flag standing on Mars would stir rather than snap. Its fabric would lift slowly and settle again. moving the way cloth moves underwater, without the sharp crack it makes in Earth's heavier air. Imagine watching it for a long while, seeing only that slow, patient shifting. Picture the dust beside it too, needing a strong wind to lift it at all, and then taking its own unhurried time to come back down, because gravity there is light. As you rest, let that slowness fill the whole scene. Everything on Mars rises gently and falls gently, and nothing there is ever in a hurry to land. The very finest dust of all, once a strong wind has stirred it up, can stay in the air for minutes before it settles back onto the ground. There is grace in a world where even the dust falls slowly. And so the fabric stirs, and the dust drifts down, soft and unhurried, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 51. Liquid water cannot linger on the surface of Mars today. The pressure of that thin air is simply too low to hold it. Set water down there, and it does not stay, turning quickly to vapor or freezing into ice, depending on the hour. Imagine a small pool that never gets the chance to sit still, a puddle with nowhere to be. Picture a world of stone and dust and frost, where the middle state between them, the flowing one, no longer has a place. As you rest, there is nothing sad in it. The planet has simply put its water away, into the ground and into the poles, and kept it there, safely out of the way. There is a kind of careful, unhurried housekeeping in that, a world tidying itself away over ages. And so, Mars holds its water frozen and folded away, patient and safe, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 52. And yet the whole planet is written over with the shapes that water leaves behind. Look at Mars from above, and you are reading old handwriting, the marks of something that flowed here long ago and then stopped. Imagine a landscape holding on to the memory of rivers for billions of years, because nothing came afterwards to wash it away. On Earth, weather would have rubbed those marks out within a few million years. Picture those shapes lying untouched, kept perfectly by the cold and the dryness and the stillness. As you rest, let the planet be exactly that. Not an empty place, but a page that was written on once, long ago, and then never erased by anything. There is a soft comfort in a world that remembers so faithfully. And so the old water still shows in the ground, quiet and unhurried, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 53. Across the oldest highlands of Mars, there are dry riverbeds, winding down the slopes and joining one another exactly the way river networks join on Earth. Small channels gather into larger ones, and larger ones gather into larger still. Imagine standing in one of those beds, in a shallow valley with gentle sides, its floor now nothing but sand and stone. Picture how the water must have found its way here once, sliding downhill, choosing the same paths water always chooses. As you rest, let the familiarity of it settle over you. The branching pattern of a river is the same on any world that has rain and slopes and time. There is something homely in seeing the shape of our own rivers written quietly into the side of another planet. And so the dry valleys wind on down the highlands, empty and calm, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 54. In Jezero Crater, there is a fossilized river delta, a broad fan of layered sediment spread out where a river once emptied into a standing lake. Imagine the shape of it from above, the same soft, spreading fan a river builds anywhere, laid down grain by grain, then left alone for billions of years. Picture the water arriving slowly, dropping the sand it carried, backing up into a lake that filled the whole crater floor. As you rest, know that this is exactly why Perseverance was sent there. Of all the places on Mars, a delta is where the fine mud and the old stories settle. There is a quiet patience in choosing where to land on another world simply by following an old river home to its mouth. And so the delta lies where the water left it, layered and still, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 55. Curiosity has been reading a similar story in Gale Crater, finding mudstones and lakebed layers stacked one on top of another in the rock. Mud settles only in calm standing water, and it settles slowly. Imagine what that stacked thickness means. Not a flood that came and went, but a lake that stood there quietly for a very long time, perhaps millions of years. Picture the fine grains drifting down through still water, settling on the bottom and being covered over by the next ones and the next for longer than we can easily hold in mind. As you rest, let the slowness of that settling feel like a lullaby of its own. Layer after layer, no hurry, nothing to interrupt. There is something deeply restful in the way patient water lays down stone. And so the old lakebed holds its layers in place, undisturbed and even, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 56. Elsewhere on Mars, there are outflow channels on a scale that Earth has never matched. Great carved valleys like Kasai Valleys, cut by floods far larger than any river our own planet has ever held. Imagine water easing out of the frozen ground and running for hundreds of kilometers, cutting its channel a little wider as it went. Picture the channel it left behind. Broad, deep, streamlined islands standing in the middle where the flow parted around them. As you rest, remember that all of this happened long ago and is entirely finished. The flood is over, the ground is dry, and the shape is the only thing that stayed behind. There is an unexpected stillness in the leftovers of something once so large, a great rushing thing that has been perfectly quiet for billions of years. And so the great empty channels lie open across the plains, silent and wide, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 57. Scattered all through the older terrain of Mars are clays and sulfate minerals, the kinds of minerals that only form where water has been. Imagine a rover reaching out with an instrument, touching a pale patch of rock and finding, written into its chemistry, that this stone was once wet. Picture those minerals lying in bands and patches across whole regions, marking out where lakes and springs and damp ground used to be. As you rest, let this be the gentlest kind of evidence. Not a dramatic find, just quiet chemistry, sitting patiently in the rock, waiting for someone to come along and ask. There is something touching about a planet that keeps such careful records for billions of years, holding them in the stone until a small machine arrives to read them. And so the clays and the sulfates hold their record in the stone, faithful and unhurried, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 58. Opportunity, rolling across Meridiani Planum, found the ground scattered with tiny grey spheres, each about the size of a peppercorn. The team nicknamed them blueberries. They are made of hematite, an iron mineral, and they grew slowly inside the rock in ancient groundwater, like pearls forming in the dark. Imagine picking one up, a small, perfectly round, dull grey bead. Picture thousands of them loose on the sand, freed as the softer rock around them wore away over the ages. As you rest, let that be the image. A whole plain quietly sprinkled with little stone berries, each one grown by water that vanished long ago. There is a strange sweetness in traveling all that way and finding something so small, so round and so ordinary, lying on the ground of another world. And so the blueberries lie scattered across the flats, tiny and grey, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 59. Both poles of Mars carry permanent ice caps, kilometers thick, bright white against the rust of the plains. And both are cut through by wide spiral troughs, curving outward from the center like the grooves in a slowly turning record. Imagine looking down at one from above and seeing that pattern, enormous, graceful, carved by nothing more than wind and sunlight, working on ice over ages. Picture the troughs deepening a fraction at a time, over millions upon millions of years, never rushing, never finished. As you rest, let that spiral turn softly in your mind, wide and white and unhurried, a pattern drawn so slowly that no one could ever watch it being made. There is a quiet artistry in a shape that slow weather draws entirely by itself, with no hand to guide it. And so the polar ice keeps its spirals turning, patient and pale, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 60. The two caps are not quite the same. The northern one is mostly water ice, a great dome of it sitting at the top of the world. The southern one keeps something extra, a permanent lid of frozen carbon dioxide, dry ice, resting on the water ice beneath and never fully lifting, even at the height of summer. Imagine that layer holding on year after year while the seasons turn around it. Picture the cold of it, so deep that a gas simply stays a solid there. As you rest, let the two poles sit in your mind like two quiet sleepers at either end of the planet, one covered lightly and one covered twice. There is a settled, restful feeling in ice that has quietly decided to stay exactly where it is. And so, both caps hold their cold in place, still and undisturbed, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 61. Each winter, roughly a quarter of the whole Martian atmosphere quietly freezes onto the winter pole, settling out of the sky as a wide, pale sheet of frozen carbon dioxide. Imagine the air itself growing a little thinner month by month, drifting down and gathering as frost across ground that has not been warm in a very long time. Picture that same frost lifting away again when the spring light returns, rising back into the sky without a sound, until the air is whole once more. As you rest, let that slow exchange settle into you, a whole planet breathing in and letting go across a season that lasts about half an Earth year. There is nothing lost in any of it, and nothing hurried. The air simply moves from one place to another and then comes home. And so Mars breathes gently through its long winters, patient and unbroken, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 62. When spring comes to the polar ground, the buried dry ice does not melt into a puddle. It turns straight to gas beneath the frozen lid above it and slips out through cracks and openings. Imagine that, escaping gas, carrying fine dark dust up with it, spreading it over the pale ice in soft, feathery fans. Picture the same shapes appearing season after season in the same quiet places, drawn faintly across the white. As you rest, there is nothing sharp or sudden here, only a gentle sighing away of ice into air, and a little dust laid down where the wind decides to let it fall. There is a strange delicacy in it, in patterns drawn so lightly that a season of frost can wipe them clean again. A whole polar landscape painting itself over slowly, with no hand and no hurry. And so the dark feathers spread across the spring ice, soft and unwatched, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 63. Ice on Mars is not only gathered at the poles. Across huge stretches of the middle latitudes, buried ice sits within a meter or two of the surface, hidden just below the dry dust. Imagine walking across an ordinary rusty plain, seeing nothing but stones and sand, and knowing that not far beneath your boots, the ground turns to solid ice. Picture that layer running on and on beneath the dust, unbroken across enormous distances, giving away nothing at all to anyone standing on top of it. As you rest, let that thought stay comfortable rather than strange. A whole quiet floor of ice tucked under a thin blanket, holding still through season after season. There is a soft secrecy to it, something kept safe simply by being covered over and then left alone. And so the buried ice lies waiting just below the surface, cold and undisturbed, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 64. In 2008, the Phoenix lander set down on the far northern plains, reached out with a small arm, and scraped a shallow trench in the soil. Imagine the little scoop working slowly, lifting away a few centimeters of dust and uncovering clean white ice underneath. Picture the camera watching those bright specks over the following days, seeing some of them quietly shrink away and vanish into the thin air, which was how we knew they were water. Picture how small a hole it was, no bigger than something a child might dig at the edge of a garden, and how much it told us. As you rest, there is nothing dramatic in the scene, just a machine, a shallow scrape, and a patch of white in the orange ground. There is a plain kindness in a discovery made so gently, and so the ice lay revealed in its little trench, bright and brief, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 65. That same small lander watched something no one had ever seen before. Snow falling from Martian clouds. Imagine a thin laser beam pointed straight up into the night sky, and fine ice crystals drifting down through it, slow and sparse and glinting one at a time. Picture that snow descending for a while, and then vanishing while it is still high above the ground, turning back into vapor long before it ever settles on anything. As you rest, hold that image softly. A whole snowfall that never reaches anywhere, simply drifting down out of a pale cloud and fading out in the cold, thin air partway through its fall. There is a quiet tenderness in weather like that, falling faithfully night after night with nothing to land on and no one to see it. And so the snow comes down and gently disappears, halfway between sky and ground, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 66. Further from the poles, whole glaciers lie buried beneath blankets of dust, sheets of ice tucked into valleys and against old slopes and covered over long ago. Imagine a slow river of ice, hundreds of meters thick, sealed over by a coat of rubble and dust that keeps it from ever thinning away. Picture radar signals passing down through the dust and finding the smooth, bright body of the glacier still there, held almost perfectly still, its edges as clean as the day the dust closed over them. As you rest, let those hidden glaciers feel restful rather than lost, leftovers of a colder, wetter time, preserved simply because nothing has come along to disturb them. There is a deep patience in ice that has neither melted nor moved for many millions of years. And so the buried glaciers keep their shape beneath the dust, sealed and sleeping, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 67. Even on the great volcanoes of the Tharsis rise, thin patches of water frost gather in the early morning, forming a faint bluish sheen across the dark old lava. Imagine air slipping up those enormous, gentle slopes overnight, cooling as it climbs, until the last trace of moisture settles out onto the ground. Picture that frost lying no thicker than a human hair, catching the first low sunlight across a summit hundreds of kilometers wide. Picture it lifting away again by the middle of the morning, gone as quietly as it came. As you rest, let it be that simple. A little frost on a mountaintop, arriving and leaving with the light. There is something homely in the idea of frost on a mountain, even a mountain as impossibly large and as long asleep as that one. And so the thin frost comes and goes on the volcanoes, faint and daily, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 68. In the winter of 1979, the Viking II lander looked out at the ground around it and photographed a delicate coat of white frost lying over the stones. Imagine a flat, rusty plain scattered with rocks, and every upward-facing surface dusted pale, as though a very light snow had passed by in the night. Picture that frost staying for weeks through the cold season, thin enough to see the color of the soil right through it, and then quietly lifting away again as the year turned towards spring. As you rest, let the picture hold still. An old machine standing on a cold morning, sending home an image of frost on a distant plain. There is a quiet warmth in that, a scene so ordinary it could almost be a garden at dawn. And so the white frost settled over the Viking stones, gentle and familiar, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 69. Gather up every piece of ice we know about on Mars. The caps, the buried layers, the hidden glaciers, and it would be enough to lay a shallow sea across the entire planet. Imagine that water spread evenly over every plain and crater, from the volcanoes to the deep basins, standing perhaps 35 meters deep. Picture a shallow worldwide sea, calm from pole to pole, with nothing at all moving on its surface. As you rest, there is no need to hold on to any of the numbers. Simply let the image sit there, a whole planet's water, counted up and gently poured out flat. There is something soothing in a sum that comes out so modest and so still. And so Mars keeps its shallow hidden sea, locked up as ice, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 70. In 2018, radar looking down through the southern cap found unusually bright reflections coming from deep beneath the ice. Imagine a signal sent patiently down through kilometers of frozen layers and returning a little stronger than anyone expected, the way it might if it had touched water. Picture the careful, unhurried arguments that followed, some reading those echoes as pools of very salty brine, others as clay, or as layers of ice at different temperatures doing much the same thing. As you rest, there is no need to settle it tonight. We still do not know, and that is a comfortable place to leave it. A quiet question sitting under a polar cap, in no hurry to be answered. There is a gentleness in mysteries that ask nothing at all of anyone, and so the bright echoes wait beneath the southern ice, unexplained and untroubled, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 71. On certain warm slopes, thin, dark streaks appear as the season turns, creeping a little further downhill and then fading again by winter. Imagine faint lines on a crater wall, no wider than a footpath, darkening slowly over weeks and then quietly washing out again as the air cools. Picture how they were first read as trickling, salty water, seeping out and staining the ground, and how, over the years, people quietly came round to something simpler, dry sand sliding gently down a slope in the thin air. As you rest, let both explanations sit together without contest. The streaks appear either way, faithful to their own slow seasons, whatever it is that draws them there. There is an ease in a puzzle that changes its answer slowly and never raises its voice. And so the dark streaks come and go along the warm slopes, patient and unhurried, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 72. All this frozen, buried, uncertain water is only what remains. Long ago, Mars held far more of it than this, and a thicker blanket of air above to keep it liquid at the surface. Imagine standing on that older Mars under a heavier sky, with standing water in the low places and rain or snow falling in the highlands. Picture rivers running for seasons at a time, and lakes holding their shape for thousands of years, all under a sky that could still keep them. As you rest, there is no sadness needed in the comparison. That world simply grew colder and thinner over spans of time far longer than anything alive has ever measured. There is a soft continuity in it, the same planet, the same stones, only much quieter now. And so the old wet Mars gave way to this dry one, slowly and without protest, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 73. About 4 billion years ago, deep inside the planet, the churning that had given Mars a global magnetic field slowed and then stopped. Imagine a small world cooling from the inside out, its molten heart growing sluggish until the invisible shield around it faded away. Picture the solar wind arriving afterwards with nothing left to turn it aside, brushing directly against the top of the atmosphere for the first time in the planet's long life. As you rest, let this be as undramatic as it truly was. No moment, no single event, nothing anyone standing there would have felt. Only a very slow letting go, spread across more time than the mind can hold. There is nothing to grieve in a small planet simply growing quiet with age, the way small planets tend to do. And so the magnetic field faded from around Mars, gently and long ago, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 74. The old field did not vanish entirely. It left a faint signature behind, frozen into the most ancient rocks. Imagine wide magnetic stripes running for hundreds of kilometers through the southern highlands, locked into crust that hardened while the field was still working, and untouched by anything ever since. Picture a spacecraft passing quietly overhead and feeling those stripes still whispering upward through the dust, far too scattered for any compass to trust, and yet plainly, patiently there. As you rest, think of them as a very old memory kept in stone, the shape of something that stopped long before there was anyone anywhere to notice that it had. There is a quiet dignity in a record that goes on keeping itself with no one at all to keep it, year after year after year. And so, the faint magnetic stripes lie in the oldest ground, remembering, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 75. With no shield above it, the thin air began to drift away, and a small orbiter called Maven has now spent more than a decade watching it happen. Imagine the solar wind arriving as a faint but constant breeze from the sun, catching the very topmost molecules of the air and carrying them gently off, a few at a time. Picture that loss measured out patiently, year after year, and found to be so slight that across a whole human lifetime, nothing measurable changes at all. As you rest, hold the scale of it gently. This is not an event, but a very long, very quiet exhalation. A breath let out so gradually that it takes billions of years to finish. There is peace in something that departs so slowly it can barely be called leaving. And so, the last of the Martian air drifts off, molecule by molecule, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 76. The water that stayed behind carries a small clue about all the water that did not. Imagine two kinds of water mixed together in the same ancient seas. One of them very slightly lighter than the other, indistinguishable to any eye or hand. Picture the lighter kind slipping away into space a little more easily over the ages, drifting off first, until what remains behind is noticeably enriched in the heavier sort. As you rest, let that be the whole of it. A difference so small that only the most careful instruments can pick it out at all. And yet, it quietly tells us that Mars once held a great deal more water than it does now. There is something touching in a planet keeping its own history dissolved in what is left. And so the heavy water lingers in the ice and the air, remembering the rest, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 77. Mars keeps two small moons, and neither of them is round. Phobos is the larger, about 22 kilometers across, and Deimos is smaller still, around 12. Imagine two dark, lumpy rocks, closer in size to a modest city than to our own moon. Too small for their own gravity to have ever pulled them smooth. Picture their pitted grey surfaces, worn with craters and covered over in a soft layer of loose dust that has been settling there through ages of small, quiet impacts, and on the larger one, scored as well with fine, shallow grooves. As you rest, let their smallness be soothing rather than strange, companions in scale with the world they circle, keeping their orbits without ever making a sound. There is a modesty in moons that never grew big enough to round themselves into spheres, and never needed to. And so, Phobos and Deimos turn above the rusty plains, lumpy and faithful, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 78. Phobos circles closer to its planet than any other moon in the solar system, only about 6,000 kilometers above the ground. Imagine a moon so near that it swings around the whole planet in 7 hours and 39 minutes, faster than Mars itself can turn. Picture what that does to the view from below. Phobos rises in the west, crosses the sky against the ordinary flow of the stars, and sets in the east a few hours later, then comes back and does it again before the day is out. As you rest, let that odd little rhythm feel restful rather than restless. Twice a day, the same small shape drifting the wrong way across a pink sky. There is a gentle strangeness in a little moon that moves backwards through the hours and thinks nothing of it. And so Phobos hurries quietly overhead, twice each sol, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 79. Deimos, further out, does almost the opposite. It takes about 30 hours to complete one orbit, only a little longer than a Martian day, so it drifts across the sky with extraordinary slowness. Imagine watching it rise in the east and then following it for the better part of 3 whole sols before it finally eases down and sets in the west. Picture how small it looks up there, not a disk at all, just a quiet spark among the stars, no different to the eye from any of them. As you rest, let that slowness be the whole picture, a tiny light easing across the heavens so gradually that you could sleep and wake and sleep again and find it barely moved. There is a deep calm in something that takes days to cross a sky, and so Deimos glides on, patient beyond measure, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 80. Phobos is too small to ever cover the sun completely. It slides across as a dark, notched shape, and the whole eclipse is finished in about 30 seconds. Imagine a rover on the plains below, its camera tilted patiently upward, filming that brief passage as it has quietly done many times before. Picture the light dimming just slightly and then returning, all within half a minute. And Phobos is easing inward as it goes, drawn down by a couple of meters each century, so slowly that a whole human life would show no change at all. In tens of millions of years, perhaps 30, perhaps 50, it will either spread out into a faint ring or come quietly down. As you rest, there is nothing to watch for tonight. There is time enough in that number for everything. And so Phobos keeps circling, unhurried and unfinished, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 81. Mars is bright enough to see with the naked eye, and every ancient culture noticed the reddish point that slowly wanders among the fixed stars. Imagine a shepherd or a scribe, thousands of years ago, looking up at a calm night sky and marking the one small ember that never quite stays where it was. Picture the patient records they kept, season after season, tracing its slow loop across the heavens without ever knowing what it was they followed. As you rest, there is something gentle in that long habit of watching, a quiet human attention handed down through countless still evenings. There is comfort in knowing that people have looked at this same soft light for as long as there have been people, asking nothing of it, simply noticing that it moved. Every one of those watchers is long gone now, and the little light still keeps its slow appointment, and so the little red wanderer goes on being watched, unhurried and faithful, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 82. In 1877, an astronomer named Asaph Hall found the two tiny moons of Mars after a long and patient search. Imagine him at the eyepiece night after night, the dome cold around him, sweeping the same small patch of sky and finding nothing at all. Picture the moment the first faint speck finally held still beside the planet, and then, only days later, the second one appearing as well. As you rest, there is something soothing in a discovery that took nothing but patience, no hurry, no noise, only someone willing to keep looking. There is a quiet satisfaction in two small moons that had been circling all along, waiting through every century for a night steady enough to reveal them. They had turned around their planet through all of history, unhurried and unremarked, and nothing about them changed when we finally noticed. There is no impatience in a moon, and so Phobos and Deimos slipped gently into our knowledge, small and calm, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 83. That very same year, Giovanni Schiaparelli mapped a network of faint straight lines across the face of Mars and called them canali, the Italian word for channels. Imagine him bent over his telescope in Milan, the image trembling in the warm air, the disk of Mars no bigger than a fingernail held at arm's length. Picture him sketching by lamplight what his eyes seemed to gather in those brief moments of steadiness, careful and honest, drawing only what he believed he saw. As you rest, there is no error to scold here, only a person doing his best with a small telescope and a great deal of care. There is something tender about a map drawn in good faith, of a world too far away to be sure of. He never claimed they were built by anyone. He only wrote down the shapes his tired eye offered him. And so the first fine lines were drawn, gentle and mistaken, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 84. In English, canali became canals, and a word that meant natural channels turned into something built by hands. Imagine how quietly a single word can shift as it crosses a language, and how far that small shift can travel afterwards. Picture Percival Lowell, years later, in the clear air of Arizona, spending night after night drawing a whole intricate web of them, convinced he was tracing the work of someone else. As you rest, there is no need to hurry past his mistake, because it came from wonder, not from carelessness, and it filled a generation with soft imagining. There is something almost sweet in a misunderstanding that made people love a distant world more than they had before. For decades, people looked up at that small red light and pictured long, quiet waterways across a desert. There is room in a night sky for a little untruth, softly held. And so the canals were drawn and drawn again, patient and untrue, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 85. As telescopes improved, the lines slowly faded away, because there had never been anything there at all. Imagine the eye straining at the very edge of what it can resolve, quietly gathering scattered dim specks into tidy shapes, because a shape is easier to hold onto than a blur of faint points. Picture the same face of Mars seen through steadier glass, the fine straight lines dissolving into soft, mottled patches of light and shadow, and nothing more. As you rest, there is something calming in a mystery that simply thins out and disappears, leaving no wound behind, only a clearer view. There is a quiet grace in being wrong about something, so gently. And in a planet that never argued and never explained, but simply waited to be seen properly. The lines had lived only between a distant world and a tired human eye. And they went out the way a dream goes out in the morning. And so the canals faded from the maps, soft and unresisting, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 86. In 1965, a small spacecraft called Mariner 4 flew past Mars and sent back 21 photographs, the first close views of another planet's surface. Imagine those images arriving slowly, line by line, as numbers over the radio, taking hours to assemble into grainy grey pictures. Picture what they showed when they finally came together. Craters, dust, worn old ground, and no canals anywhere at all. As you rest, there is something quiet in that first honest look. A whole century of drawings and dreams gently set down and replaced by 21 small photographs. There is peace in finally seeing a thing as it is, without argument, without ceremony, the truth arriving softly and staying. The real Mars turned out to be older and emptier than the Mars people had dreamed, and in its own way, far more restful. There is a plain kindness in that. And so the first pictures came home through the dark, faint and patient, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 87. 6 years later, in 1971, Mariner 9 settled into orbit around Mars and became the first spacecraft ever to circle another planet. Imagine the long coast out from Earth, the slow, careful turn, and then the steady rhythm of a machine falling around a world instead of merely passing it by. Picture what greeted it on arrival. The entire planet wrapped in a global dust storm, its whole surface hidden beneath a soft, featureless haze. As you rest, there is no disappointment to feel in that, only the strange calm of arriving somewhere and being asked politely to wait. There is something gentle in a world that draws a veil across itself just as the first visitor comes into view. The storm had been blowing for months before anyone arrived, and it would end whenever it was ready, and not a day sooner. And so the small orbiter began its circling, patient and unbothered, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 88. It waited, week after week, while the dust slowly thinned and settled back down toward the ground. Imagine that quiet stretch of time, a machine circling in silence with nothing to photograph, simply keeping watch until the air grew clear. Picture the first thing to appear through the fading haze. 4 dark spots standing above the murk, so high that the storm never reached them. Those were the summits of the great volcanoes, the tops of Olympus Mons and its 3 neighbors on the Tharsis Rise. As you rest, let that image stay with you. 4 calm peaks rising quietly out of an ocean of dust. There is something deeply peaceful in a discovery that had to be waited for, and that arrived on its own unhurried terms. They had stood above the dust for millions of years before anyone was there to see them do it. And so the mountains emerged from the haze, ancient and still, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 89. In July of 1976, the Viking 1 lander came down safely onto a flat, dusty plain, the first spacecraft to land on Mars and go on working. Imagine the long, slow descent, the parachute, the final soft settling onto the ground, and then a very long pause while the dust drifted back down around it. Picture the first photograph it sent home, a stretch of stones and reddish sand, an ordinary horizon taken from the surface of another world. As you rest, there is something quietly moving in that plain view. No ceremony in it at all, just a landscape sitting there in the afternoon light. There is peace in a first glimpse that turns out to look like an empty desert on a still day. Nothing came to meet it, and nothing moved in the frame, and the light simply went on falling the way it had for ages. And so Viking settled onto the sand and looked around, calm and unhurried, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 90. The 2 Viking landers carried small laboratories designed to test the soil for signs of life, and what came back was neither a yes nor a no. Imagine a spoonful of Martian dust stirred into a nutrient broth inside a warm little chamber, and something happening. Something that looked almost like breathing. Picture the long, careful arguments that followed. Chemists and biologists turning the same numbers over and over across the years. As you rest, there is no tension needed here, for the question was simply left open, and it has stayed open ever since, discussed gently and without alarm. There is something restful in a result nobody had to force into an answer, a small puzzle left on the shelf for later. Most now think the soil chemistry alone can explain it, and the soil itself is in no hurry to settle it. And so the Viking question sits where it was set down, patient and unresolved, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 91. Some Martian rock has come to us on its own. One such stone, known as Allen Hill's 84001, was once thought to hold the fossil traces of tiny Martian microbes. Imagine the quiet stir it caused in 1996. The electron micrographs, the little tube-shaped forms far smaller than any bacterium on Earth. Picture how carefully other scientists went back over that evidence, and how, piece by piece, each shape found an ordinary explanation in chemistry alone. As you rest, there is no letdown in this, only a reading gently set aside, and the stone itself still sitting in its drawer, still valuable, still Martian. There is something calm about a claim that softened over time and simply stopped being needed. The rock is around 4 billion years old, and it has kept whatever it knows to itself all that while. And so the old meteorite keeps its long silence, plain and unremarkable, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 92. More than 300 meteorites found on Earth have turned out to come from Mars, knocked loose by ancient impacts and drifting here on their own. Imagine a distant collision long ago, throwing a handful of stones off the planet entirely, sending them out on slow, looping paths around the Sun. Picture them coasting for millions of years, unwatched and untouched, until one of them happens to cross our path and comes down in a desert or on a field of ice. As you rest, there is something companionable in that. Small pieces of Mars quietly arriving here, needing no spacecraft, no launch, no plan at all. There is peace in a delivery that took 1,000,000 years and was never sent by anyone. Most are found on ice or in dry sand, where a dark stone lying alone is easy to notice. And so the Martian stones arrive when they arrive, slow and unannounced, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 93. In 1997, a small rover named Sojourner became the first wheeled machine to move across the surface of Mars. Imagine something about the size of a microwave oven rolling down a ramp onto the sand and easing forward more slowly than a snail. Picture it staying close to its lander the whole time, never straying more than about a dozen meters away, nudging up against rocks and taking their measure one at a time. As you rest, there is something endearing in that careful little circuit, a first small journey made with enormous caution and no hurry whatsoever. There is peace in a traveler content to explore a patch of ground no bigger than a small yard and call it enough. It worked for about 3 months, then went quiet, and it is still sitting out there where it stopped. And so the first small rover pottered about among the stones, gentle and slow, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 94. In 2004, 2 rovers named Spirit and Opportunity landed on opposite sides of Mars, each planned to work for about 90 days. Imagine engineers hoping for 3 months of driving and setting their expectations accordingly, modest and realistic. Picture what happened instead. Spirit kept going for 6 years and Opportunity kept going for 14, long after everyone had stopped counting the days. As you rest, there is something lovely in that quiet persistence. 2 small machines simply carrying on because nothing had yet told them to stop. There is peace in work that outlasts its own deadline by so much that the deadline stops mattering, in a task done slowly and well, and then done some more. Spirit fell quiet in 2010 and Opportunity in 2018, each of them simply reaching the end of a very long shift. And so the twin rovers rolled on for years past their season, patient and steady, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 95. Opportunity drove more than 45 kilometers across the plains of Meridiani, further than any machine had ever traveled on the surface of another world. Imagine that journey stretched across 14 years, made a few slow meters at a time, slower than the slowest walk you have ever taken. Picture it stopping to look at a rock, then moving on, then stopping again, crossing a landscape that never changed much and never needed to. As you rest, let that pace settle into your breathing, unhurried and even, going nowhere in particular and arriving all the same. There is peace in a record set entirely by patience, by simply not stopping for a very long time. Its wheel tracks are still there in the dust, drawn out behind it for kilometer after kilometer, and there is no rain on Mars to wash them away. And so the little rover wandered on across the rust-colored plain, tireless and calm, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 96. In 2012, a much larger rover called Curiosity arrived, lowered onto the ground on cables from a hovering platform that then flew off and came down by itself, a safe distance away. Imagine that strange, gentle delivery, a machine the size of a small car set down on its wheels as softly as a parcel on a doorstep. Picture where it has spent the years since, climbing a broad mountain of layered rock in the middle of Gale Crater, a few meters at a time, reading the layers as it goes. As you rest, there is something soothing in that unhurried ascent, a slope so gradual that the climbing hardly feels like climbing at all. There is peace in a journey measured in years, where each layer of stone is another quiet chapter. And so Curiosity goes on up the mountain, slow and steady, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 97. Curiosity sometimes smells the faintest trace of methane in the air around it, rising and falling with the seasons. And the orbiter passing overhead finds none at all. Imagine a trace so faint that out of every billion small parts of that air, fewer than one of them is methane. Picture the two instruments, one on the ground and one high above, both careful, both trusted, quietly disagreeing across the years without ever raising their voices. As you rest, there is no need to settle this tonight, or to settle it at all. There is something restful in a question that stays open and asks nothing of you. A small, unfinished thing left lying gently in the dust. And so the faint puzzle drifts on with the seasons, unhurried and unresolved, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 98. Insight, the little lander that spent 4 years listening to the ground, is out there on its plane even now. Its work ended in 2022, when the dust that settles on everything finally covered its solar panels. Imagine the light growing dimmer year by year, the power fading a little each week, until one day there was not quite enough to send another word home. Picture it now, still and complete, its instruments quiet, gradually taking on the same soft rust color as everything around it. Elsewhere sits a small helicopter called Ingenuity, which made 72 short flights before coming down hard one January and staying where it landed. It still gathers a little weather data where it stands, storing it away with no one left in range to hear it, and otherwise keeps very still. As you rest, there is nothing sad in either of them, only long tasks finished and set down. There is peace in machines that worked until they were done, and then simply stopped, exactly where they stood. And so they rest on the plains where they ended, silent and settled, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 99. Perseverance came down in Jezero Crater in 2021 and has since climbed out over its western rim, filling small sealed tubes with rock along the way and setting some of them down gently on the ground. Imagine a neat little row of metal cylinders lying on the sand, each one holding a piece of an ancient river delta, capped and clean and waiting. Picture them lying there through the seasons, through the frosts and the dust storms, keeping perfectly still in case a ride ever comes for them one day. As you rest, there is no urgency about it, nothing that must happen soon or ever. There is something quietly touching in things left carefully in a safe place for someone who may or may not arrive. And so, the small samples wait on the sand, patient and untroubled, resting quietly in the dark. Fact 100. High above all of it, a few small orbiters keep circling, some of them since 2001. Imagine them passing quietly overhead, again and again, watching the same slow desert turn beneath them. Earth and Mars only line up for a crossing once every 26 months. The journey takes 6 to 9 months, and a word sent by radio needs anywhere from 3 to 22 minutes just to get there. Picture how gently everything happens here, how nothing can possibly be rushed. As you rest, let that be the last thought of the night, a whole world where the answer always takes a while to come. Someday people may make that crossing. Until then, Mars turns on alone, cold and pink and patient, and very, very quiet. And so it turns, unhurried and undisturbed, resting quietly in the dark. Sleep now, and so Mars goes on turning, the way it has for billions of years, with no one there to watch it. The dust rises and settles. The frost forms in the night and lifts again by mid-morning. The pale blue light gathers around the setting sun and fades, and the long, cold evening comes on. Somewhere out on those plains, a small machine sits still in the dust, waiting for the light to come back. Nothing there is in a hurry. Nothing there is waiting for you. There is nothing left to do tonight, and nowhere at all you need to be. Let your breathing slow. Let the thoughts drift down like dust and settle where they fall. Rest now. There is nothing more to know tonight, and nothing you have to remember. Mars will keep turning, quietly, whether anyone is watching or not, and it will still be there in the morning, exactly as it is now. Sleep well.